last section of Old World Blues to do, and that will make the Old World Blues DLC roughly 4 parts, because there was the introduction part, there's the stream I still haven't uploaded, there's the stream I just finished a minute ago, and then this one, which should be short. Honestly, for this is actually something I also wanted to say, is that these DLCs aren't super expensive. They're roughly like $15 each, and there's 4 of them. And for what it's worth, I mean, this DLC, like, thoroughly completing it takes me like 6 hours.
Yeah.
Around 6 to 8 hours. And I was thinking about this strongly because when I played the Fallout 4 Point Lookout DLC, that shit took me like 4 hours.
Ready, steady, fight.
It actually makes sense why I was having slowdown, because I've actually been playing it for quite a long time. God, that's a lot of overkill. I think it is layer time. So I did some digging as to why this gun has such good damage. You know why it is?
Why?
It's on par with a fucking Phasmocaster.
Well, yeah, it's advanced science, you know?
Was that all?
Its only drawback
Time
is
to fight.
unlike... God, so many lower.
Fighting over.
The only caveat is unlike the Phasmocaster, this weapon is not durable. Like, I can fire about 300 shots and then this weapon's gonna break again. And it's, even with jury rigging, it's actually very difficult to find stuff to repair this with, so I'd have to be using weapon repair kits. Fortunately, I have like 20 weapon repair kits, because this DLC has just been spitting out the components for them, like, over and over and over again. Oh god, I felt so...
Attention visitors! Combat experiment in progress. Please put on your
If you want to be sneaky, turn off your Pip-Boy light.
The X-42 giant robo-scorpion is alive! Awaken my pet! Initiate your search and destroy protocol in the name of all that is Mobius!
Saturnight armor placed on the giant robo-scorpions exceeded expectations mostly. Once it's virtually in touch with the small arms fire, the Sonic admitted that passing the bulletin managed to fight several of the prototype subsystems. After looking to prove the EMP shielding, positive notes, the prototype's new atomic laser is performing admirably. Some residual radiation is left behind after the weapons destroyed. Unfortunately, this robot is quite large, but it has not seen me. Now, if I was a cool combat character, I might start fighting with it. But since I'm Sheldon, the big nerd... Atomic lasers putting an incredible strain on the giant robo-scorpion generator. Damn thing shuts down right in the middle. Push for reducing lasers output 24%. Set to backup generator on the Scorpion. Dangerous if you ask me. This is what designed to handle the power from 2 systems at once. If some rookie tech fires up the back generator too early,
Do you like me?
I do like you.
Oh, it looks like the target drones got activated and... Oh, how cute! They're engaging the export system with your pincers! Let's see the shrapnel fly! my desire to commit violence on you.
This is a pre-recorded message indicating my desire to commit violence.
This is a pre-recorded attack message indicating my desire to commit violence on you. This is a pre-recorded attack message indicating my desire to commit violence on you. X-42, attack in the name of Mobius!
Batteries, 4 out of 9 correct, so that's A, probably ES as well. A would sync up, the T would sync up the EMS, so this one, bottom. Okay, turrets start booming.
Okay. Wait, is that Kanye West?
You can't avoid the deadly laser sting of Dr. Mobius! This is a pre-recorded attack message indicating my desire to commit violence on you. Let's make this sport.
Bye bye, stupid.
Goodbye, loser.
Dummy.
Dab.
Okay, it's dead, you can stop firing.
Jeez, come on. You already won. Don't just keep shooting.
That's a fun fight. Much better than the
No.
robot fight in Outer World.
No, it didn't last for like 5 minutes. It's bad.
You know what's good about this one? I could activate things in the arena to help me. In fact, if I was perfectly good at science, I would actually be able to completely shut it down and avoid the fight entirely.
No, impossible.
But I wanted to activate the turrets and drones because I wanted to see mayhem. Mayhem and destruction. Now let's talk to Dr. Mobius. Wait, no, let me loot the rest of his stuff.
Let me steal all his stuff first, then
He
I'll
doesn't
talk
need
to
this.
him. Stupid idiot.
Oh ho. That's a big robo brain. That's a super robo brain.
I'm imagining all sorts of imaginary numbers right now.
Filing cabinets. Crap. Ooh. fusion cells, and a lot of them. That's a lot of mentats. I'll leave some for Dr. Mobius. It'd be rude to take all of them. Posters. Oh, now I have 2 toasters, so now I can see what the hell that Toaster Destroyer does. Mr. Toaster Destroyer man.
Did I do something wrong?
All sorts of imaginary Oh, hello there. You are there, aren't you? Forgive my confusion. So hard to tell these days. You seem familiar somehow. I'm guessing you're here for your brain, perhaps? It's just up there. Such a nice brain, young, very bright. Little hard to see you. Can you walk into my left, right FOV cone? Ah, that's it. You're coming into focus nicely.
Is that better?
Depth perception is a problem with this old monitor of mine. Went black a while ago. That's old age for you. Should look at getting the visual nerves reattached. It's just that the right eye would see the wrong things. Flying tortoises were the worst. Would you care for a mentat?
Would you?
I'll save it. Don't want to mix it with alcohol if I can help it.
I love mentats. Delicious and smarty. I have all sorts of amazingly science-erific thoughts and ideas when those chalky tablets are zipping through my biogel. I forget them all not long after, though, especially with the data constipating my memory core. Afraid binary streams might shoot out my chassis. Had to start using the dome floor and walls here to inscribe equations, although I've somewhat lost track of where they start and end.
You aren't exactly what I was expecting.
Really? That implies preconceived notions, theories, and a hypothesis about this meeting? Please extrapolate. What was I supposed to be like? After all, it might be worth a cognitive realignment if your theoretical Mobius is better than I.
Why did you steal my brain?
What a theoretical...
Oh, a variety of reasons. You're something of a homily. Anomaly? You're really quite special, and not in the cranially challenged way. You see, you are the most successful brain extraction experiment ever performed here at Big Mountain. A victim of your own success, as it were. If you were to go back with what your brain knows about the procedure, Your brain could be popped back in and you could walk right out of here. Can't have brains moving around of their own volition.
Why is that a problem?
I'm not sure, except that I'm sure there's a very good reason for it. I have very good reasons for almost everything I do.
The big brain, I'm winning
Even
again.
if I forget them occasionally. Although I feel this one is especially important. Oh well.
Okay, well, I need to leave, so I need my brain back.
Now, that seems to be rather hormonal of you. Flight or fight response, you know. Hard to cut that out completely. Your brain is here, safe with me. We chat over mentats.
I was curious about some things.
Oh, curiosity. I experience that less now that I know everything. Oh, maybe it was when I found out some unpleasant answers.
I can't fix your monitor, but if you're getting ghost reception, I can fix that.
The ghosts aren't real? That changes everything. Why, I can save my computing power for other perceptual impossibilities. Please be my guest. The receptor is there, and the side-switching wobbly bob, just turn that. Good, good, better. Oh, yes, that feels wonderful. This is even better than my afternoon mentats break.
You don't seem aggressive, so why do you broadcast those threats to the think tank?
Oh, I was probably tripping hard on Psycho when I sent that. Had to work myself up to it. Not usually violent, except when I am. Then, watch out! So many chems, such varieties. Whenever I take mentats, I can feel my entire chassis breathe like a big spherical lung. As for the Psycho, sometimes get the chem dispositories in my tank all switched up. Go in the wrong tube. Still, served its purpose.
Well, can you tell me about your robo-scorpions?
Well, every scientist needs an army. Mine came to me after these rather large scorpions kept coming in from the desert, like poisonous frosting. How scary, I thought. But they had survived when nothing else had. Perfect candidates for improvement as a reward for their tenacity. Then I thought, what if they shot energy bolts and acted as walking eyes and data-drained computers and acted as bullhorns? Then I made them bigger. Then I thought about custard. I do so love custard. Or was it mustard? Mustard custard. I miss sugars and salts.
So do I. So you built the robo-scorpions and issued threats to keep the think tank occupied.
Did I? Maybe I did. Can't have them leaving. Some reason for it. Ethics or, conscience? You and your brain are quite alike. I'm sure it knows the reasons better than I do.
Wait, so nothing is adding up. Not your plan, not even your name. Mobius.
Dr. Mobius. Rather catchy, isn't it? It's my name, and my new name overwrote the old one. This name's as real as you or I, although I believe your brain expressed similar incredulity at the nature of such an appellation. Someone's been watching too many old-world science fiction movies, it said. I believe it meant me. I must admit I have a vulnerability for holotape fantasies of planets and robots and all that is forbidden. As for the name I was born with, like the think tank, we were all reprogrammed to forget them, take on new names. It enforces the recursion loop in our perception programming.
So you reprogram their names as part of a recursion loop to trap their processes.
Now, trap is a rather harsh word, like excrement. Not an inappropriate word, but still rather harsh. But, yes, I did take some liberties with their programming. It's all right, they don't remember. I certainly didn't until you said trap, and then I said excrement, and then...
It's like talking to like Grandpa Simpson if he was smart. A recursion loop is designed to prevent the flow of information, so...
The radar fence to keep the think tank hemmed in wasn't really enough. They keep testing things. They would have found a way to disarm it. I suspect I have Plan 9s in place.
Plan 9's in
but
place.
I may have coded myself to forget them, just in case. They're probably very dangerous, lethal, or worse. So I had to do something else to keep them occupied here. Or as you like to say, trapped. I prefer to have several Plan 9s in case the 7s fail.
Keep going, on to the rest of this.
Dr. O, which is actually not his real name multiplied, since you can't multiply his real name in the first place. Ouroboros, Klein, they have all forgotten themselves. And not only themselves, but the world, sense of time and history. All that is left is what's here. I reprogrammed their chronometers, geometers, and cartography programs. This is now their world, here, Big Mountain. It was a merciful lobotomy, really, thinking back. They were my friends, but sometimes they would take things too far. And the world isn't ready for that kind of too-far thing-taking. That's my professional opinion, anyway. And I am told I was once quite professional.
You lobotomize the think tank, then why terrorize them?
Well, it's simple. Despite their many failings, they are rather bright. They are the think tank for a reason. That I didn't change. Without something to distract them, make them afraid, they would simply deduce what had happened. And when they start deucing it up, then you came along, the final variable solved. They saw that their world was larger than they perceived. Bacteria, finally able to see its host.
There's been other signs of a larger world.
There have been other visitors to make them doubt their perceptions, but you are the one who dialed back their monitor micromagnifiers. You were irrefutable proof that there was a world outside. And then there was the whole brain fiasco, which forced me to take steps. See, your brain had a special kind of wrinkle, a uniquity that they had never thought to try in all their countless escape attempts.
A cranial injury from the attack outside Goodsprings, yes.
Yes, very good. I should have mentats ingest you instead of the other way around. Mentats. In any event, you showed up at the think tank, and because you had suffered a cranial injury in just the right place, bullets in the head are usually much more fatal, and yours was a light case of bullet headitis. But it was enough for the autodoc in the sink to change its programming to fix the problem, and the brain extraction technology for once worked. That gave the think tank the knowledge its brains couldn't possess. With that knowledge, the procedure can be reversed. If they obtain that procedural data, they can use it to mush and modify their cranial cells into hosts to slip past the radar fence. I'm sure of it. And once they're off the reservation...
So if I don't get my brain back in my head, I can't leave ever?
Oh no, I doubt your brain would be so unreasonable. It already knows the trick of it, you see. Doesn't need to be in a host body at all. If you become friends or exist in an uneasy truce with weapons aimed at each other, it would unlock the fence for you. Well, once the think tank was dealt with, of course. Your brain is a responsible sort. Doesn't want mad scientists running around everywhere.
So your threats... You set your threats on a loop to keep them occupied?
Yes, I certainly wouldn't loop it on purpose. Purpose. I am far too sophisticated to make such a childish error.
What about the other visitors?
Not much, except they contaminated Big Mountain and installed new ideas in the think tank. One caused a great deal of infrastructure damage with his brain and smartiness. Ruthless, that one. Played a little rough with the trains. But the last one was the most dangerous. Him, slipping away. That was almost as bad as the think tank escaping.
What do you mean?
The first one, the ruthless one who smashed up our toy trains, asked for weapons, power, items he could use to destroy a nation with force. The other asked a different question, and with it got the true answer about what makes nations and what breaks them. He spoke to the think tank to climb, showed them the flag of the old world, and it made them remember all of it, all that had happened. They shared things with him that they shouldn't. He now carries those ideas, that knowledge elsewhere.
I was curious about some things.
Yes, this is getting interesting. You are just filled with these little slices of curiosity, aren't you?
Need my brain back.
Do you? You seem fine without it. And does it even want to go back with you? Maybe you should ask it. It's quite independent, has all manner of opinions. Tell you what, I'll leave it up to your brain. If it wants to go, then fine. If not, well, you should respect its wishes.
He's right, you know.
I guess so.
Indeed. The goodbye part of our little chat, then. Goodbye. Please mind the equations on the floor.
I'll try. Oh yes, the alcohol. We should counteract that with some mentats.
I'm having the most peculiar feeling of deja vu right now.
Mine said they had the idea to get the 3 technologies after your broadcast.
I consider coincidence to be profanity, along with the words astrology, herbal tea, and luck.
Potty mouth?
So watch it, potty mouth. My threat broadcast is designed to instill and install fear. And along with the emotional download, other data rides the fear carrier wave. It prompted them to focus on retrieving those technologies and bring them to attack me. And coincidentally, pardon my language, all those technologies are needed to put a brain, your brain, back into its skull properly.
Was it the purpose of the technologies?
The X2 antenna can be used to focus your alpha wave frequency thought patterns. The sneaky suit? Why, it houses a cardiac regulator. And the sonic sound wave projecto emitter was never intended as a weapon. It was a medicinal vertebrae pulse desensitizer. In short, brains, a heart, and courage. Spine. I think there was a story once where a band of murderous thugs sought these things. They had them all the time in the story. Didn't stop them from murdering to get them. And it won't stop the think tank either.
I believe you're talking about the Wizard of Oz. The think tank downloaded the schematics, not the items. They can rebuild them.
Oh, that means my plan is a total failure. That is unfortunate.
Wow.
Oh well, at least I tried.
I tried. Is there any other data transmitted?
Yes, my overly aggressive cammed-up broadcast was designed to keep reinforcing the forget, fear, rinse, and repeat program. Oh, and the get me the things to castrate your only possible escape attempt. But I couldn't delete you or your arrival any more than I could the other visitors. Only so much science can do when you started talking to them. You're really quite difficult to ignore, you know. It's because you're, well, rather intriguing, if you'll forgive an old brain for saying so.
Time for me to go. Goodbye.
Indeed.
Well, well, look who finally dragged themselves in out of the wasteland. And where have we been, Crawling through pits of radioactive muck again?
Are you my brain?
Ah, lovely. Figured that out, have we? Would you like a cookie?
There's no need to be sarcastic. Meeting your own brain is a slightly odd event.
Yes, well, believe me, the opposite is equally true. Good Lord, have you bathed at all since they pulled me out of you?
Yes, because running around a crate full of bizarre science experiments, hygiene was really my top priority.
Well, I see sarcasm hasn't eluded you.
I didn't.
Fine,
I mastered
perhaps now
sarcasm
isn't the
from
best
Sheldon
time,
Clark.
but it's the principle of the thing.
You're my brain, you better be more respectful.
Oh, had I? What exactly will you do if I don't? Not put me back in that cranial dungeon you call your head? Heavens forbid.
Fine, never mind.
Yes, I rather thought so.
How did Mobius get hold of my brain?
After the think tank extracted me from your skull, they fell to bickering amongst themselves. I'm sad to say we were quite forgotten about. Dr. Mobius saw an opportunity to gain some leverage and had me spirited away to his dome.
That's an unlikely coincidence.
Hardly. Dr. Mobius keeps a close optical sensor on the goings-on at the think tank. As soon as he saw the opportunity, he took it.
That answers that.
Well, as long as your curiosity is satisfied.
It's too weird, I'll be back later.
Barring the unlikely event that
I'm running out of floor space for my calculation.
Ah, the meat has... Well, that's a... And have we forgotten who got us shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave? Hmm? Do you think I enjoyed that little moment?
Oops. Didn't realize it caused you distress.
Well, maybe next time you hear me telling you that charging a knifekin with a penknife is a bad idea.
Well,
You
that
listen.
Nightkin isn't around, and I am. Don't you want to be reunited? I thought you'd be happy to get back in my head.
I'm not going to lie to you. The prospect is definitely not that appealing. Look at it from my perspective. Here I have peace, quiet, and safety. Well, barring the odd rogue scorpion. In your head, I've got poison, radiation, grisly injuries, and biological functions. Do you know how much more you can get done when you're not constantly looking for places to urinate? It's quite a lot, I can tell you.
I can see your points. What can I do to make this a fair compromise?
If you want me back, we need to establish some ground rules. First, showers! Second, regular checkups. Regular, mind you, and from a reputable doctor. That Julie Farkas woman, for example, she seems to know a thing or two. Third, you need to listen to me more than your hormonal choir and genitalian orchestra. Promise me that, and you've got a deal.
So what, you'd rather just stay here, never leaving that tank of whatever that stuff is?
Well, certainly there might be some things I miss about being ambulatory. We have seen some incredible sights, haven't we? Jason Bright and his followers launching into the vast unknown. Helios 1 coming back online. But still, given the tremendous, potentially life-ending peril that went along with those, yes, I'd rather stay here.
Here's the thing. Would Sheldon want his brain back, or would he like the idea of it being immortally preserved in a tank? Almbic, you're muted. Oh, I'm muted. Well, Albic's not here. Well, before we get to debating this question, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Well, I'm back. My theory is, Almbeck, again, if you're speaking, you are muted. Well, Sheldon has often said he wanted to put his consciousness in a robot body so he could live forever. On the other hand, having his consciousness in his body does not require his brain. His brain being here in a way does actually is both fulfilling of his goal and not. I think he would want his brain to live forever if he could continue to be as smart as he was. If it lives in him, it dies. If you like being stuck in there so much, maybe I'll just leave you.
Oh no! Please, don't leave me here in this nice, safe dome where I have access to nutritive fluids and a fully indexed library.
An indexed library?
Please don't deprive me of being dragged through a landscape so bleak it was actually improved by the end of the world. I don't know how I could bear it.
Look what happened to the think tank. Do you want to end up like them after a few hundred years?
It's true, the brains here have experienced some degree of deterioration. I'm confident that with a few decades of work, I can solve the problem.
So you've been taking into account the coercive effects of long-term exposure to biochar.
Of course I accounted for that! Do you think I'm so stupid? No, you're right. Maintaining my current functionality will be harder than I thought. This bears some further looking into.
What would happen to me if I left you here?
Let me see. I suppose you'd continue on much as you are now, using that synthetic thinking machine to do the heavy lifting. Unless, of course, the batteries run out. But that seems unlikely.
And if I put you back?
I'm not entirely sure. I suppose there's a chance that the reintegration would create some improved synergy between us. What form that might take, though, I cannot say.
Came back.
Okay, Almbeck, here's the thing. Would Sheldon keep his brain, or would he like it to be preserved in immortality for decades?
Forever, bro.
I think he would keep his brain here.
I think Sheldon would accept. I think Sheldon would basically accept that his brain is safer here, and that it will live eternally, which is what he wants.
Exactly. And also,
he's
you would
keep
enjoy
robots fine.
Also, you would enjoy the fact he says I'm smarter than everyone else, even without my brain.
No, now he's He's smarter than everyone else twice now.
Exactly.
Because he and his brain are two separate people.
Fine, you can stay here. Not like I needed the hassle.
Oh no, you don't need this hassle. You're too busy treating your body like a canvas of sucking flesh wounds.
Okay then, I'm going.
Good, go!
I will!
Fine!
Great!
I know it's great!
Well, so long then. I'm going back to the think tank. They promised to let me out.
And you believe them? Really? I know you were recently deprived of my fabulous advice, but... Really? Once I'm delivered into their clutches, they'll find a way past the radar fence and the whole Mojave will be their playground. And that is assuming, of course, that one of them doesn't take a fancy to our body and decide to slip his own brain into it instead.
What's so bad about letting the brains get out? They don't seem that terrible.
Don't seem so bad. They vivisected us just to see what would happen. Have you forgotten the lobotomites? The cyber dogs, I assume you saw those. Imagine that kind of science spread across the entire Mojave. Every man, woman, and child we've met reduced to a lobotomite. Is that what you want?
Let's go make them share then. Come on, brain, it's stomping time.
Oh, lovely. We've reached the mindless violence portion of the program. Tell me, what exactly are you, and I use the word loosely, planning?
I'm going to give them a demonstration of the physics behind small, fast-moving chunks of lead.
You can't just shoot them.
Now that you mention it, I do miss that lovely rat-a-tat-boom a bit. It's just not the same without a body to feel the recoil. What's the next step then?
I'll handle the brains. You stay here. You'll be more useful outside my
That
head.
arrangement suits me fine. Do try not to get too many holes drilled in your head, will you? I may want to drop by for sentimental reasons. Right then. You'd best be off, hadn't you? The think tank will be waiting. Oh, don't worry about me. When you're gone, I'll flush myself over to the sink. It's amazing how far you can get in this place with a good flush. I'll keep myself hidden in the ductwork. Klein won't suspect I'm inside the dome, so he won't know the pacification field no longer works on us. I can also upgrade the sink's autodock with the procedures to reinstall your heart and spine. With any luck, I'll see you in the sink when this is all over.
Sheldon is probably one of the characters I would actually have that would not put his heart and spine back in. He would keep the robopod.
Yeah, because he's a Chad. I wish I had robot parts.
Ah! Let's get out of here before the beer wears off.
Why did you take beer?
Incumbent capacity.
You missed out on so many dialogue options.
No, I didn't.
All those incumbent.
I took Mentats to counteract the effects.
Oh, did you go back and do them while I was?
Yeah, I believe so.
What's the hap?
Found a sound wave file for you. Talk to you later.
Get your... Someday, I'd like to meet the man who's got no blues to sing.
Tobacco chew.
Like sleepwalking.
Oh. Oh, I can get repair kits on the Sierra Madre vending machine, and I have 5,000 chips, so I actually really don't need to be worrying about these weapon repair kits at all.
Yes.
Might I be of service? Might I be of service?
citizen. Did you know that communists have an organ behind their eyes that converts salt water into fresh? Oh, wait. Penguins?
Nice. Prepare to face signs, Penny.
The lobotomite returns. Our lobotomite. Has Dr. Mobius been denominated into scrap metal and voice module parts, as we hoped?
Found my brain. Now you and I are going to settle things.
I recommend watching your tone with me, lobotomite. Now, your brain. Hand it over, or we'll extract it again.
I'm not handing my brain over. There's some things we need to discuss.
And what could we possibly have to speak about? You have the brain, we have the technology. All you must do is surrender. With it, we can finally leave this place. I cannot tell you how boring this place gets, chopping up the landscape and everything in it. And we have so many questions to ask your brain first. About this Mojave place. A fertile testing ground for our experiments.
You think I killed Mobius?
Yes! Wait, you did, didn't you? You are lying. No, you are not. Your heartbeat, perspiration, all excessively confident and sure of yourself. Why would you reason with that maniac? He'll destroy us all!
Maybe you should confer with your colleagues first.
Nonsense! Confer, colleagues? Those are two words I do not recognize.
Dr. Klein, I must intercept. Please, do not harm the lobotomite.
I'm not going to harm it. I'm going to dissect it until it's dead. Why the sudden intersection, Dalla?
I cannot stand a sweet breathing organism breathing in and out to suddenly not breathe. We must keep it alive for study.
Dalla, these vocalized pauses are unlike you. What do you care?
Klein, you know, this lobotomite, it's a great sounding board. You respect ideology, right? This one's, well, it's got good ideas.
Silence, Dr. O. This is a think tank decision. Save your objections until after I have decided our course of action.
You know what, Klein? Stick a straw in your tank and suck yourself. Long and deep. And my name is Zero. Yeah, a big, fat zero with a slash through it.
The slash as a designator of... Why, that is brilliant. But how did you...
The lobotomite taught me that. Taught me a name is more than, that I should take pride in things like names. And you know what? Forget it, Klein. I hate you. And your theory of brain-gill beam oscillation? The Chinese had it first, you copycat! How dare you? Brainial beam oscillation was solely my discovery. I expressly told you that and deleted all evidence to the contrary. It's 2-8. Why are you acting like this? You've never refused to commit necessary surgery before. And this lobotomite needs its surgery. A noble speech, but there's no room in my vocabularies for friend and lobotomite in the same sentence. The very concept, revolting. Perhaps you are irradiated with camaraderie radiation. We have chems for that. We can save you from your emotional addiction. If I may, I feel as if I must be the voice of reason here. This lobotomite is much like us. Regarding even animals and pets as nothing more than avenues to promote science. There is good here. Instead of ending its life on the table, we should prolong its suffering in the name of science. Like good old Gabe, the finest of lab specimens. Why am I even listening to you fools? Enough of this mutinous chorus. If there's a word I hate, it's mutiny. And the word jism, which never made any sense to me. It's ridiculous putting j and zm together like that. Nonsense! I count as 5. Like the mighty human hand I once had, with its 5 penises clenched in a fist.
Sounds to me like your math is wrong, and the odds aren't good.
Nonsense! The mathematics of this situation are on our side, lobotomite. I believe... No, wait. Carry the 2, then... If this were a democracy, I would be concerned. We are too scientific for that. So just surrender.
It's not a democracy. It's a research facility, and over half your colleagues dispute your findings.
You dare use logic against me?
I do. Here's the deal. I'm not going to surrender. You are. Bazinga.
That's no deal at all. There's a whole world beyond the crater, filled with ideas and possibilities. We could have escaped, seen it all for ourselves, tested it, prodded at it, made it squirm.
Didn't still do that here, quietly. For me.
For you? And for science? I have a strange sensation that I would like that. Very well, partner. The think tank is at your service as long as you do not destroy us.
I did it. I made the think tank bend to my will. Just as Sheldon would have wanted.
As it had been in the years before the Great War, Big Mountain, the Big Empty, became home to one of the brightest minds of the 23rd century. The courier watched over the Big Empty for years to come, caring for it and keeping its discoveries safe until they were needed to help others. Which had always been Big Mountain's purpose. Past the laboratories and science, it had always been intended as a place to build the future of all mankind.
The Sync Central Intelligence Unit was impressed by the amount of exploration the courier had undertaken. Facilities believed lost, destroyed, or ones that had simply gotten up and walked to new locations had been rediscovered by its intrepid new master. Internally, the artificial personality debated as to whether it preferred the old management to the new. and concluded that the courier's thorough approach to research and investigation was admirable and worthy of its respect.
Dr. Mobius continued his research undisturbed in the Forbidden Zone. As much as he had attempted to create better scorpions, he tried the same with humanity, with considerably less success. These failures didn't bother him overmuch. Once the rush of mentats wore off, he forgot he had failed in any event. After all, the bright young mind who had come to visit him in the Forbidden Zone had already exceeded his expectations.
The sink atop the dome bustled with the voices of a small town, constantly chirping, arguing, and snarling at each other. Still, this all happened productively in the interests of its new owner. The Sync Central Intelligence Unit discovered, despite its inversion code, it was comforted by the sense of community the other personalities gave it.
The Biological Research Station, obsessed with seeding everything in sight, requested a transfer to the X-22 Botanical Garden, so that it might, in its own words, sensually fertilize the garden's smooth contours. The garden sent back a polite refusal, saying it had prior commitments with a vault it had helped infect before the war.
The book chute continued to devour all seditious materials until it nearly choked on a paperclip. It adamantly maintained it was a Chinese paperclip, and the whole thing had been an elaborately orchestrated assassination attempt. Whatever the reason, it slowed down for a while, carefully appraising each document and clipboard that came to it.
The light switches continued to bicker and flicker.
This persisted until the day someone dropped a flashlight in the sink, and the two of them united in their hatred of the showboat. One of them eventually transferred to the Lightwave Dynamics plant, and began a long, unrequited affair with one of the holograms.
The sink continued to ruthlessly scrub any particulate matter that came near it. Eventually, it gained access to the magnetohydraulics plant and nearly flooded all the Big Empty in an attempt to scrub the crater clean. Once it learned of the innovative toxins plant, however, it gained new purpose. It sought to develop antitoxins to flush into its drains and counteract the poisons bleeding into the soil.
The toaster continued its psychotic spree, reducing all appliances in range to scrap electronics and spare parts. After one of its more psychotic episodes, however, the other Sync personalities decided enough was enough and dumped the toaster in a bathtub. Sparking and hissing, the toaster swore its enemies would rue the day when they had bread and no way to toast it.
Muggy did his best to collect coffee cups, although in his quest, he accidentally trapped himself in Higgs Village. It might have been the end for poor Muggy. Except, he found it peaceful there, tidying up the kitchens of the think tank professors back when they had been flesh and bone. Well, except for Dr. O, who was an asshole for having created Muggy in the first place. Muggy left O's house deliberately dirty, punishing the dishes and cups that lived there in blind revenge for serving Dr. O.
Blind old Jefferson, with sounds the courier brought him, created a symphonic counter-frequency that saved Big Mountain from sonic invasion in 2910. If you didn't hear about it, good. It was rumored by the other personalities that he had a brief fling with the light switches. Although he forgot their names much too often and was soon left in the dark as punishment.
Autodoc, always gentle and methodical, kept sewing up the courier in all the right places when the skin split open from repeated wear and tear. The Autodoc was just glad to have purpose again. It heard its simpler brothers and sisters who got shipped to the Sierra Madre were bored out of their skulls in that toxic dead city. In time, the Autodoc found a way to deactivate the Y-17 trauma harnesses, releasing the corpses they had held prisoner for almost 200 years.
As the courier ran through the X-8 facility multiple times, the computers analyzed the test subject's movements. Rather than performing a superficial observation, they realized the subject barely knew what communism was, or even what a high school was. This confused them for a time, until the facility finally realized that its research had succeeded.
No more communism.
So it let its cyber dogs out into the wastes to help protect small communities from physical aggression rather than communist propaganda.
The infiltration program in X-13 felt spent, having repeatedly upgraded the stealth suit until it could upgrade it no more. It felt warm, fulfilled, and a bit sluggish. It realized not long after the stealth suit had left it without so much as a note on the nightstand. So the infiltration program sent out robo-brains into the wastes, looking for its wayward technology. It eventually found Repcon HQ and set up a new research center, testing and murdering fiends who kept breaking into the facility.
Bark, bark, bark.
Bark, bark.
Oh my god, that dog I created from the lobotomite experiment has an ending slide.
Yes.
The courier left the brain at the Big Empty. A strange thing to say, but it was the truth. Brains are less important than they may seem. When the courier's body finally passed, the brain was saddened. It kept on, remembering the vessel that had once contained it. Even at the end, when it started to fail, however, the brain resisted going into a floating chassis like the think tank. It never said why. Perhaps it was out of respect for the courier's body. All things must come to an end, and to hang on to the past is something that's not to be undertaken lightly.
Dr. Klein and the think tank remained alive, unaware of the world outside. They looped through their daily routine, none the wiser about the world beyond, although perhaps wiser was the wrong word. The world outside belonged to the courier, and if anyone would shape it, well, the courier had already called dibs.
There is an expression in the wasteland, old world blues.
It refers to those so obsessed with the past they can't see the present, much less the future, for what it is.
They stare into the what was, eyes like pilot lights, guttering and spent, as the realities of their world continue on around them.
Science is a long, steady progression into the future. What may seem a sudden event often isn't felt for years, even centuries to come.
In the times following the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, however, Old World Blues took on a new meaning.
Where once it was viewed as a form of sadness, nostalgia, it became an expression describing the potential for the future.
It can be easy to see science as evil, technology unchecked as the source of all ills, all misfortunes.
With the courier at the helm, science became a beacon for the future. There was old world blues, and new world hope. And hope ruled the day at Big Mountain.
We could say more, but the stories in the Big Empty speak for themselves. Now armed with the transportal Ponder, the courier could return to the dome at any time and crack open the secrets of the Big Empty one by one. The Sync sat vigilant, waiting for its master to return, shoes covered in Mojave dust. Only one road yet remained, and it was one the courier had to walk alone.
That is Old World Blues. I actually didn't realize this the multiple times I played it. Like, I didn't actually realize that going to like all the discoverable places around the map would change the endings. That's a really nice way of because the Old World Blues, like its gameplay loop is so much about exploration and you know, finding unique items and loot. It's actually really nice.
Starting combat. Just kidding.
It's actually really nice that they integrate the DLC's like exploration into the endings and like how it affects people in the big empty. You know?
Yeah.
It's actually a very good way of synergizing the core gameplay loop of combat and exploration, because this is definitely one of the most heavy ones in that regard. With the
Perhaps Sir would care to
with the actual narrative of the game, like discovering all the
dulcet tones of a light opera.
discovering all the unique items. More so than that, I also really like how it recontextualizes so much of the game, like everything from Nightkin to Cazadors to the holograms in the Sierra Madre and the bomb collars. It's also probably still the best insight. Like, Operation Anchorage is okay-ish, but like this is the best insight into what it's like in pre-war America. Like, especially the Little Yanks like POW camp where they keep all the Chinese prisoners.
What do you mean? War crimes are hashtag epic.
It's a very good sense of like Old World Blues is actually a very fun DLC to play, and I was thinking I wouldn't like it when I came into it, but actually I'm going to have a newfound appreciation for it, the way it blends exploration and looting.
3 angry death claws make for a lot of reconstructive.
It actually achieves, with basically no human characters whatsoever, a lot of storytelling. Like, I like it. There's not a single person or settlement around it. It's just an empty wasteland full of hostile creatures, and it's used to tell a story. The lobotomites, the cyber dogs.
There are human characters. They're just they're just in robot bodies.
I suppose. I mean, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's no settlements. There's no.
Yeah, there's no like town.
Come on, baby. Bring me a sweet little dried fruit.
And like, it's again like the way that the think tank, less so than Dr. Mobius, but like the think tank, the way that they surrender their humanity to become more robotic. It's very clear the fact that they don't really, they find like parts of what make people human as lesser than themselves. Like having things like emotions or like attachments to things, and like seeing things as more important than science. And like having them unlearn those kind of things, and also pointing out that they're not as smart or as dumb as they feel or think, respectively. I actually really like it. I also like how you can basically turn the think tank against Dr. Klein, not only just by doing quests in the game. Like, you don't just have to do quests in the game, you also have to like just talk to them. And it's actually, they actually have very small minor problems and very simple problems, and it's kind of an extra joke on top of everything else.
When I finally got it down, I was so happy. I cried. I hate my life.
Also, the humor's really on point, the entire DLC. Like, it's really funny. All the sync personalities are funny. A lot of the locations have that really nice dark humor to them, and it's actually... And actually, the think tank and Dr. Mobius especially are really funny. They're filled with lots of really classic sci-fi references, but they're not pushed into your face. The DLC actually does a lot to create its own humor. It never feels like a referential or parody game of like old science fiction movies, you know?
Yes.
What did you think about the humor? Like, because I think it.
I thought it was good. I thought it was good humor. I thought there was a lot of funny lines.
Who's ready for a party?
It's a little over the top at sometimes, but I feel like it doesn't get like bogged down. It also, take a note on this, The Outer Worlds has more than one joke.
Yeah, exactly. There are lots of, not only are there different jokes, but it's also not, it never feels like it's parodying like old science fiction or that. It feels very unique to the Fallout universe whilst like paying lip service to it.
There's a lot of like there's a lot of stuff that's like science fiction tropes, like especially old-timey science fiction tropes and stuff. But it's also not, there's also jokes that when it does those jokes, they're usually not just this is a trope. Isn't that funny?
Isn't it funny how they're doing the dumb thing?
Isn't it funny how they're stupid?
It's like, yeah, they're dumb, but it's actually not the only joke they have for laugh. Like, it's very clear early on that they're not really, they are smart, but they're not smart in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. They seem to know exactly what they're doing and what the society around them has trained them to do, but the society around them is so warped, their intelligence is like, basically almost like abstract and removed from like any kind of real world. All the science trains them to do is create like abominations and like strange projects in the name of defeating communism and saving America.
Robot scorpions are perfect.
They are pretty cool.
I mean, they also invented the most important. I mean, they also invented teleporting, but that's pretty useful.
Yeah, that's true. But overall, all their projects seem to have that kind of like a weird.
People.
Hmm?
And then they used it to kidnap random people
Yeah.
so they could steal their brain.
Yeah, all of their scientific wonders are used for like the most tiny, like petty projects that almost don't seem to serve a real purpose. From the gameplay perspective, this is actually like a really nice, rewarding DLC, and it feels like a better reward than the one you get at the end
Couldn't
of
stay away, could you?
Operation Anchorage.
I knew you, Big Bang.
Because Operation Anchorage just gives you high-level stuff and sends you on its way. This DLC actually feels like I get like these permanent improvements, not only just the implant, which is like a nice, good way to spend high-level caps, like min-maxing your character to be as powerful as possible, but also just like the way the reseeder can just give you all the ingredients you need to like make high-level craft like survival ingredients, or the way that like Muggy can give you basically 50 rounds of energy cells.
Who's the flatware?
Well, you can just get energy cells, microfusion cells, scrap metal, scrap like duct tape. You can get basically everything you need to make weapon repair kits consistently. It actually does a good job of removing a lot of like the more scavenging type struggles by giving you all this old world tech, and it's really neat. It's a nice way of integrating how like good all this technology is by making your life easier in game. Having new ingredients, having new ways to get like scrap metal and scrap electronics.
Someday, I'd like to meet the man.
You know?
Who's got no blues to sing.
That's what I really like about New Vegas a lot, is it's like a nice little microcosm of how all of this sort of blends well together. The same way Dead Money is a good way of like demonstrating how you can use the engine to do survival, a kind of survival horror style of gameplay. This is a good example of how it could still, you could still have like a shooting, looting like gameplay loop, and you could still actually retain like a lot of New Vegas's charm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want this for like the consistent full length of the game, but as like a little DLC side note, I actually really appreciate that they tried something very different.
That's also the thing I like about DLC is that when you make a DLC, and it's not like DLCs don't need to be these massive sprawling, it's 70 hours thing.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, a lot of concepts don't really work for a full like 70-hour game.
Oh, if this was the full game, I think a New Vegas would be mediocre. It would lose a lot if it was like
I don't
go around
understand,
looting stuff and bring them back.
Because if it's just See, this is the thing, is that, like, games where you shoot and loot things for, like, 100 hours are boring.
Yeah. But there's a small little side effect where I can get all these neat creative weapons that the developers thought of, and they kind of seamlessly blend into a story. It's actually pretty good. Like, it's a nice little slice of DLC where I get to get a bunch of interesting creative weapons that would not be feasible to do in the main story. It's kind of like, you know, like the solar plant, like how you can get that special science weapon there. This DLC is a good excuse to get a lot of weapons that are kind of in the spirit of that, like the sonic transmitter and the layer, like EMP laser weapons that are like the pulse gun. The K9 Cyberdog with targeting. Yeah.
The Cyberdog gun.
That's definitely what I like a lot about it. It's very, and then even little things like being able to convert all of my plants that I harvest into, like, salient green, which is a plant Soylent Green, obviously, and then recombine, like, reconstitute it into things I actually need. Like, just all these little ways the game makes your life easier by going through the DLC.
And we will crush our foes and hear the weeping of the small
like completing Old World Blues actually gives you a nice way of, especially in hardcore mode, of making the game significantly easier by using all this old world tech to give you like a limitless supply of like good food and good ways of repairing weapons. And a constant supply of lead. Like, the amount of scrap metal you can get in this DLC to turn into lead, which can then be turned into ammo, is great.
I mean, I don't usually have problems with ammo crafting in the main game, but it's still nice to have a consistent, like, you need a bunch.
It gives you a consistent source of things that are not easy to come by in, like, the Mojave Wasteland. And it's also, that, by extension, is a nice way of, like, emphasizing how much of, like, an untouched technological gold mine this place is, because you get so much scrap metal, wrench, duct tape,
for maximum
glue,
concentration
like,
levels.
You get lots of like technological like junk all the time in this DLC. Like, I came in here with like I think 10 or 12 weapon repair kits, and then I ended the DLC coming out with like an extra 16 or 17 made. Even the loot dispersion around the map is like a lot more concentrated, and it feels really good to raid these places for everything and then take them back in here and then just throw it all away into new things. And all of the think tank are constant supplies of caps, energy cells, junk, metal, sensor modules. It's also a nice little combat arena area, like, because of the fact that there are no settlements, the game can throw a lot more combat at you a lot more consistently. Like, let's be honest, Elbow Blues actually fills a nice little gap, like, because of the way New Vegas is built, and because of the way the factions take a lot of the space in the map. There's not actually a lot of combat encounters, you know?
I don't know, I'm not that big of a fan of doing that much combat, so it's...
I'm not saying it's a plus for you, I'm saying that, like, if you wanted to have more combat in the game, it's good. Because, don't get me wrong, there's definitely lots of places where you can get into fights in New Vegas, but, like, this gives you, like, a concentrated area with which to test out weapons on all kinds of enemies. Night Stalkers, Cazadors, every kind of robots, lobotomites, like... There's basically nothing friendly out in the big MT, so it's a nice, big combat space where you can just, if you wanted to really get into the combat this game, you could. Oh, Muggy, are you stuck?
I hate my...
But it does legitimately give you like a nice place to just get into constant combat and test out weapons and stuff. It definitely feels like a playground for you to experiment in as well. Like, I tried out a lot of different weapons, and it was good. Lots of jokes. Lots of times to use different skill checks, especially being able to use like science, repair, and like medicine. Well, especially science and repair. Like, it's really nice to actually get a DLC where you just get really rewarded for making a science high-tech build. The same way Dead Money rewards like a melee survivalist build. But yeah, like just to try and close my train of thought, because I really got something here I wanted to say about like how much I like it. I believe I think fundamentally what I like about the idea that you can get to a lot of combat in this section
Maybe
is
we could dim the lights and have a candlelit discussion of classic
it gives you the best
literature.
of both worlds. Like, if you like the combat in this game, which I actually could see why, because having gone through it is pretty satisfying, except for some of the more tankier enemies that don't feel like they should be tanky, which is rare, but happens. It gives you a nice environment where you can get to consistent combat, compared to, like, the New Vegas open world, where you have to kind of go to specific locations where you know there will be enemies. New Vegas feels like a lived-in and settled world, and a lot of areas are actually not that dangerous, especially if you're not hostile to certain factions.
If you haven't found any communists in your backyard, you're not looking hard enough.
But it's sort of a nice compromise, because if you are a player who likes to get into a lot of combat, now you have this DLC to go in and try out weapons consistently on all kinds of enemies. And there are lots of little mini-bosses and optional encounters to get into, and they feel rewarding for high-level players. Like, you can come in at level 15, but there are definitely enemies that, like, you're going to come back at, like, level 30 or 40 to really want to take on. Not a lot of them, but, like, stuff like the legendary bloatfly definitely feel like level 50, level 30 to 50 challenges. But it's a good example of how expansion packs can complement a main game by giving you a different environment that's a lot more hostile in many ways.
Are we being watched?
And letting you get a good long supply of like combat, fights, and scrap.
Foot bone's connected to the
you know?
leg bone's connected to the purple bone.
And it's a nice, smaller, tighter environment, so you actually really are. It feels like it's exploring all the places feel worthwhile, because it actually has something closer to the Outer Worlds loot, but in a more nice way of like, instead of coming into enemies every minute, you're coming into a new facility. It's a new place to explore, a new little story to look at. You might get something good out of it, even if it's just a little holotape upgrade. You're very incentivized to explore in this DLC in a good way of like, you're not just going to find more combat and more XP, even though you will. You're going to find new upgrades in ways that are going to change how you interact with the sync back at home.
Yeah.
So instead of throwing just endless
baby.
monsters,
Let's turn off the lights and
it kind of actually does something better, where it's actually giving you new dungeons to explore consistently. It's a very small world map, but like when you look at it, there's like it's a small world map, and there's probably a location within 2 minutes of each other at most. Like, you're almost guaranteed to discover everything as long as you keep looking at whether the hollow like map points are and head towards them. And that's what I really like about it. It's got a lot of consistent exploration. It has a lot of consistent combat, but more importantly than that, each place feels fresh and interesting to go to. There's an actual purpose for me going, even at level 50, there's an actual purpose of me exploring these places and finding new loot and items. Comparatively, again, I keep throwing this back to the Outer Worlds, probably because it's the most recent game I played. Comparatively, the Outer Worlds has very few dungeons, and all they can really offer with you is like ammo and bits and things to sell.
No?
Going to each one of these new places feels like I'm getting a new story, a new little hint at what the world is like. Well, not only before, but what it's like now. Like, you know, you go to like the watchtower of the camp, and there's the dead like Chinese POW that Elijah's working on to perfect the bomb collars he uses in Dead Money. It's interesting. It's small. It's optional. There's not even that much to get inside it, but it tells you a little bit more about the world. The Outer Worlds uses all of its moment-to-moment combat just to give you combat. It never conveys more about the environment you're in. And that's what the Old Worlds, Old World Blues ultimately gets right about the exploration combat loop. Everything has meaning outside of just the mechanical bonuses that you get from going there and fighting.
Yeah.
And now that I've said a mouthful, I believe I will end the DLC there. That took about 4 parts, fairly large parts. That was probably about...
I smell.
You know, when I think about that, the first section was like 2 hours, and then every consecutive section was like 2 to 3 hours, so... That's around 10 hours or 12 hours I probably got out of it. No, probably closer to 8 to 10, but still, it's... Clocking in my Old World Blues playthrough about 35 hours, everything felt like such a slog. Whereas doing that DLC, which was 1/3 the length, felt very natural. Again, it's part of why the exploration feels good. It's like, it all feels natural to go to each place and explore it. Finishing everything in this is a rare game of... This is a rare little mini-map wherein, like, doing 100% completion feels natural and doable.
500 Riddler trophies.
Exactly. It's such a small world. It actually feels like it's something you should actually go out and get everything in, you know? Like, there's only 35 locations and it's a small map and it's a DLC you pay money for, and the game very early on tells you you're going to be getting cool stuff from basically every dungeon. You get some really seriously cool high power weapons in this DLC, and it's definitely very rewarding in that aspect, and it succeeds in doing stuff that like games like Assassin's Creed Origins do not, where it's like, look at this gigantic map. You're probably going to spend like 100 hours exploring this, and it's not going to feel rewarding because there's no way developers can think of enough unique things and unique dungeons and unique quests to fill out all that space. So you end up with randomized quests and randomized bandit camps and just enemies you actually have no interest in fighting. You just do it to complete out that sector of the map. These 35 locations all feel worthwhile going to and interesting, and it's a nice small environment wherein 100% completion feels good. Because at the end of it, the sink you have is a very powerful, consistent source of good weapons, armor, and just consistent resources.
Are we
and
being
supplies.
watched?
It feels like everything you do out in the world exploring reinforces like not only upgrading the hub, but like the selection of unique weapons you have. Somewhat similar to how in Metal Gear Solid, it actually feels worth it to go out into the world and get resources because Mother Base needs all these resources. It's not just crafting for your own sake to get a slight damage increase. You're getting like new and different ways to interact with the world in that
Muggy's
game.
alright. Not too serious, but nobody's perfect.
But yeah, I think I will leave it off there. This is a very good DLC that shows how to do world exploration and looting and shooting like gameplay loops correct. Again, no NPCs out in the world except for arguably Dr. Mobius in the Forbidden Zone. Yet, it still has tons of good dialogue, tons of good humor, and I still feel really driven to go to every location, even though there's only going to be enemies. And for what it's worth, as much flack as New Vegas' combat gets, I enjoy doing the combat in this game a lot more than Outer Worlds, because Outer Worlds looks very squidgy and peppery. It feels like all guns are like pew pew pew, and there's no real difference.
See, the thing is that even if the Outer Worlds does have like more like conventionally like normal combat,
yeah,
it's still not like outstanding or anything, and they just make it most of the game when it's really mediocre.
I would say this combat, like overall, like in terms of systems, New Vegas' combat is obviously not as strong. But on the other hand, New Vegas has such a broad variety of weapons and ammo types and ways of going around situations. Like, there's really, like, you don't get a single missile launcher, as far as I can remember, in Outer Worlds. You don't get a single, like, cool anti-material rifle. There's the DMR sniper rifle and the normal hunting sniper rifle, but that's it. New Vegas complements the sort of more repetitive nature of its combat, because like it may not be like the most punchy or crunchy set. It's not Doom by any means. Doom succeeds with having a small weapons loadout because each weapon feels unique and punchy, and it complements the flow of a very heavy combat gameplay. Whereas the Outer Worlds has very heavy combat gameplay, low enemy variety, and really low weapon variety. Like, a lot of weapons really serve the same function because of the way the RPG skill system has to make a lot of weapons consistent for any kind of build. Whereas New Vegas has a lot more, like, a lot of different weapons. I mean, sure, you could say, oh, well, these shotguns serve the same purpose, these assault rifles serve the same purpose, but they all sound different, they use different ammo. There's a lot of incentive to switch between different shotguns or different assault rifles. And ultimately, the fact is, all the enemies use the same weapons that you do. It feels a lot more natural, just in that very same sense. So when the combat on New Vegas starts to get boring...
Again? Ugh, I'm so much more fun!
So ultimately, when New Vegas combat starts to get boring, you can switch it out and change it up. Whereas the Outer Worlds, I never really felt like I was incentivized to ever stop using the heavy machine gun or light machine gun. Like, why would I change to the light assault rifle? It basically feels like the same weapon, but it has a smaller ammo clip.
But it's different. It has higher damage.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel as good to use. It just feels like a generic assault rifle. And again,
Yeah,
this weapon sure has its share of
higher damage.
This is another thing as well. Is like it sure has this game sure has like variations of like. This game sure has like generic weapons, but even those feel special. Like the assault carbine uses the same ammo as the service rifle. Sorry, uses the same ammo as like the minigun. But having like a small assault rifle that can deliver high-powered bursts with 5mm rounds, it feels good. Like it's an expensive weapon. Like just to get that kind of automatic firepower in such a small package.
If
like,
I made out with the sink, would you pay attention to me?
The assault carbine feels like a good weapon to have and use, and I believe the marksman carbine uses the 5.56mm rounds. It's basically an upgraded service rifle, but it feels punchier to use. It feels more powerful. Like you feel a very good sense of progression because the weapons actually differ from each other. Like, let's say the natural progression of like using like sniper rifles is hunting rifle, then the sniper rifle, then the anti-material rifle. Each of those weapons feels distinct to use as different upgrades. They use different ammo types. Sorry, the hunting rifle does share 308, but the sniper rifle fires it a lot more powerfully. And even then, the hunting rifle has advantages over the sniper rifle because it's a bolt action. It doesn't necessarily need to be scoped. It can have a larger magazine, as far as I remember. There are actually good reasons to switch between these weapons, even after you find ones that seem to be clear upgrades. Like, the anti-material rifle, it's absolutely better than the sniper rifle, but good luck finding 50 MG rounds in the same amount that you find 308 rounds, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, this DLC is a very good example of why the combat in this game is actually pretty good, at least in my opinion. The way the exploration and combat loops flow in this game actually feels pretty natural. I wouldn't like it in the main game, but in the small environment like the big mountain, it's good. And with that review complete, I think we'll be signing off, unless you have anything you wanted to add.
No, nothing.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry that you are this way.
And the next and final DLC will be Lonesome Road, then we'll be finishing the main quest, and then who knows what game we'll be playing next.
I do, it's Tyranny, you said so.
It's probably Tyranny. Although we might be playing some Halo at some point. I would like to play some.
I mean, I wouldn't want to stream that, though.
Beg your pardon?
I mean, I wouldn't want to stream that, though.
If you haven't found any communists in your backyard, you're not looking hard enough.
Never tell me things related to you, Daniel.
Get one last good look at the... You know, interesting Easter egg? You know those, like, hexagonal, like, prisms that are out in one of the areas of the Old World Blues?
Yeah?
I think there was like a cut content thing where like Good Springs gets completely annihilated by those. I think it was in the cut ending where like, you know, you completely side with the think tank and unleash experiments.
Yeah.
Which is similar to the Secrets side with Elijah engine ending in Dead Money. Was that cut or was that in the game?
That's in the game.
Okay, it's still in the game, yeah.
You just have to have bad relations with the NCR to do it.
Ah. That makes sense.
Best friends forever, gonna bring the gas to
I left them in a vault to die as he slowly suffocated from lack of oxygen. It felt fitting.
I mean, there's oxygen there. He'll starve in years, probably. Yeah, probably die of old age before then.
What a pathetic existence. Good. Well,
You should have just shot him instead of being a dick.
but he deserved it for all the suffering he put everyone through.
Retribution isn't justice, bro.
It is when I'm Sheldon.
Well, yeah, well, when you're Sheldon, you're an idiot.
Take that back.
Sheldon is dumb.
Okay, we're gonna end this Twitch stream, and then I'm going to beat
Wait,
you.
is the Twitch stream not over yet?
No, it's over now.